The carbon tax con job. They collect the tax for 7 years, pass a law to raise it 300% by 2030, and then, a few weeks before the election, they hide it from sight. All to try and win a fourth liberal term in power. The full carbon tax, which lets them keep the tax and raise the tax, remains in place today, even after Mark Carney tried to hide the tax just a few days ago. That law would raise the tax yearly until it hit 61 cents a liter in 2030. All the liberals will have to do is flip the on switch to put the tax back on gas, heat, farmers, and others. If they really planned to get rid of the tax, they would have recalled Parliament and repealed the carbon tax law for real. They haven't. If the liberals were to win an election, which I hope never happens, Justin Trudeau's economic advisor turned Prime Minister Mark Carney would simply bring back the carbon tax. In fact, what he calls a shadow carbon tax, this time without a rebate.
We need to use effectively a shadow carbon price.
Mark Carney admits that his future carbon tax would make cars more expensive.
So there's a carbon price on steel. To the extent to which that's paid, yes, that does show up in the cost, for example, of an automobile. If you look at a $25,000 or less car, the cost, if you replaced all the steel and it became green steel, so no carbon steel, which is an extreme version of what we're talking about here, it's less than $200 additional price. So it's something, but it's not much.
Right, just $200. Remember when the liberals told us that their earlier carbon tax wouldn't cost you much? And Carney's shadow carbon tax will be much bigger than the Trudeau tax.
So far, carbon prices have been applied sparingly. They've been set far too low.
So here's the trick. Hide the tax before the election and raise it afterwards. I told you he was sneaky, but also scary. Just as Donald Trump is hitting Canadian industry with a massive tariff, Carney is saying he will impose a massive carbon tax on Canadian businesses above and beyond the industrial carbon tax that Trudeau has already brought in. The combination of Trump's tariffs and Carney's carbon tax would drive steel, aluminum, and many other industries out of Canada altogether. Workers would lose wages, consumers would pay more, money and jobs would leave Canada, making us more dependent on the Americans, just like Trump wants. It reminds us of Carney's decision to move his company headquarters out of Canada just 6 days after Trump threatened tariffs on Canada to steal our jobs. Carney's also trying to trick you again by saying that taxing steel will not cost anyone because, apparently, nobody uses steel.
Then secondly, what we're going to do is make sure not that the government pays, not that we as taxpayers pay, but the large polluters pay. And so what happens...
But does that not ultimately trickle down?
No, because what the big companies are producing, by and large, are not products that we are consuming. There's some element of that, but by and large, you know, a steel company, how much steel are you using these days, Todd? I mean, not as much.
Carney's new and bigger tax on Canadian lumber mills, steel mills, factories, and aluminum plants will force them to leave for the United States. And here we are, facing a massive tariff threat from President Trump, who wants to take our jobs and businesses, and Mark Carney wants to help him do it. Carney's carbon tax will have Trump grinning from ear to ear.